Hi, and welcome to Stay in the Loop, where you being left behind is not an option. Let me get my focals on. And in this video, we're going to learn how to multiply basic multiplication facts using a variety of strategies. Please note that students should be able to fluently multiply all of their facts without any strategies. However, as the intro part of multiplication, students should be very familiar with these strategies here. So let's go ahead and get started. We have 4 times 3, or in other words, 4 groups of 3. Groups of is replacing the multiplication sign just so that we can make sense of what these multiplication facts are requiring us to do. So equal groups, I should have 4 groups, and in each of those groups, I should have 3 objects. Multiplication means to find the total of, so if I calculate all of the dots in all of the groups, that equals 12, because 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 equals 12, which lends itself perfectly to repeated addition. Which factor do we see over and over and over again? And that factor is 3. 3 is being added 4 times. I'm going to put these carets to make sure I do not miss any of my add-ins as I am finding my repeated addition sentence answer. So we have 6 plus 6, and that also gives me 12. Our last strategy is the array. I want to note that the array is not what you're going to see as part of the answers for the practice at the end of the video. However, an array means equal rows and equal columns, which is exactly what we are doing when we are talking about multiplication. Everything needs to be equal. No group should have more or less than another. So I have 4, and then I need to make sure that in each of those 4, I have 3 objects. Similarly to my equal groups, I want to make sure that I count all of those dots, which also equals 12. We now move to our next example, which is 2 groups of 8, or 2 times 8. So I'm going to model my first strategy with those 2 groups. And in each group, I should have 8 objects. I'm going to count up all of those dots, and that equals a total of 16. So as I then look at my repeated addition sentence, I'm asking myself which factor is repeated over and over again, and that factor is 8. 8 plus 8 also equals 16. Our last example, our last strategy is that array. So we have 2 groups, and we're going to make sure that in each of those groups, we have 8 objects. And when we are done with that array, we are simply going to count all of our dots, which also equals 16. We have our last example of 6 groups of 4, or 6 times 4. So for equal groups, I am going to model my 6 groups. And in each of those groups, same amount of objects, which is 4. To find my product, I'm simply going to count up all of those dots, or I'm going to add my 4 multiple times, which equals 24. So my repeated addition sentence is, which factor am I seeing over and over again? And that is the 4 that we see 6 times. 4 dots, but still 4 nonetheless. Here's my sentence, which still gives me the product of 24. Our last strategy is our array. So we have our 6. This is my row. And in each of those rows, I should have 4 objects. And as our last 2 examples, I'm just going to simply count up all of those dots, and it also gives me 24. So now you have an opportunity to keep the practice going. So go ahead and pause the video now so that you are able to work these out using our equal group strategy or the repeated addition. If you like the array, perfect. Go ahead and use those, but I definitely want to make sure that you get that practice in. All right, so here are our answers for our first 3 sets. I hope your equal groups and your repeated addition sentence looks very similar to mine. And here are our last 3 examples. I do hope that you felt in the loop today during this video. If you like, please subscribe and share because all it takes is one aha. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.